with the Raymore City Council work session for Tuesday, January the 16th. I want to welcome the Park Board tonight for our annual joint meeting. I'm going to go ahead and start it off by doing introductions around the table. Some of us might not know each other as well as we should, and we do have a couple of new members on the City Council, at least new from last April. So I'm going to go ahead and go around the table here. My name's Chris Turnbow. I'm the mayor. John?
John Berenson, Ward 4.
Jay Holman, Ward 3.
Bill Manson, Park Board.
Melinda Howdy Show, Park Board.
Steve Troutman, Park Board.
Sheldon Castleman, Park Board.
Jenny Sapola, Park Board.
Brian Harris, Park Board.
I'm Sonia Abdelgawad, and I'm a City Council member for Ward 4.
Joe Burke, council member, Ward 2. Try to nuts.
Kevin Kellogg, Councilman, Ward 1.
Reginald Townsend, Council Member, Ward 1.
Go ahead and let staff go.
Nathan Mustine, Parks and Rec Director.
Jonathan Zur, City Attorney.
Jim Fearborn, City Manager.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Staff members in the back here, why don't you go ahead and start with Mr. Eakey.
Mike Eakey, Communications Director.
Matt Taft, Economic Development Director.
Steve Rouleau, Park Superintendent.
John McLean, Recreation Superintendent.
Okay, thank you all. I think that's everybody on the city staff or an appointed or elected member. We'll, tonight it's kind of exciting that we're going to start off with these topics for the Park Board. You know, a little over a year ago we came up with plans, the Park Board and the City Council came up with plans to present to the city a bond issue, a no tax increase bond issue for general bonds that would allow for improvements in the parks and in some city issues with streets and so forth. You know, those plans sit there for a while, and then people get to thinking about them. And I know the Park Board and the Parks Department have come up with some great ideas for improvements in those areas as it relates to what we had planned for, as is listed tonight, TB Hanna Park and the playground over at Hawk Ridge Park. And so I'm excited that we're going to be able to talk together this evening about some of those ideas. And what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Mr. Fearborn, and we'll begin that discussion.
Thank you, sir. And I will immediately, I share the mayor's thoughts on this. That this is exciting stuff. And it really, it really provides a great foundation and picture to our public, I think, for what we were trying to do with this particular GO bond issue and the things that we were trying to do and the forward thinking of the Park Board and the indulgence of the council and the support of the council for everything that they are doing and what staff is trying to do with these locations. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Mustine.
Thank you, sir. Needless to say, we're pretty excited about tonight. We've got some good things that we want to bring forward to you. So we'll just jump right in with TB Hanna Station. This is a particular park in Original Town. The depot is our shelter facility there. It's also the property where the farmers market is held each year. So just a little reference of where that's at. TB Hanna Station essentially was put on the GO bond for a couple of different projects. Since that time, when the bond was passed, we've increased the park by, we actually doubled the size of the park. We bought the other half of the city block, and now it's the full city block that we have there. So this is a really exciting project in terms of a complete encased park right in the middle of Original Town. Part of the GO bond projects that we put out there, we made a couple of commitments or advertised a couple of things that we felt would be really unique to Raymore specifically, but also in that area, being a spray ground, another playground in that area, and an ice rink, a synthetic ice rink. So we're pretty excited about having that opportunity to present those to you as the council, and then ultimately to the residents. I want to highlight the fact that we did make that commitment, and this proposal tonight does in fact ensure that we will deliver on that commitment to the residents. The GO bond provided a budget of $600,000 for improvements, but want to keep in mind that those were just those three components for the original property, not the entire city block. So this original proposal, or the initial proposal, is for the things that we did commit to do within that GO bond. One of the things as we developed this over the course of the summer, we went ahead and went out with an RFQ for design and consulting to help get an idea of what these projects are going to look like within that park. The staff, we went through that process. We have selected CFS Engineering to help us do that, and I want to keep the concept that tonight what we're doing is we're presenting our idea of what this park will be and asking for a recommendation to contract with CFS for design and consulting. So that's ultimately the outcome we're looking for tonight, but we want to give you the project that we have, that we've been working on and looking forward to. We know that the programming will be key. Once we have these amenities in place, how we program them are going to be key for the success of the park, and ultimately what the residents will view in terms of, did we keep our promise? Did we make that commitment, and we come through with that? So what I'd like to do, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to, I know you guys have seen the plan, but I would like to highlight a couple of the things and go through the steps and show you what we have, what we're presenting to you, why we came to that conclusion, and just kind of narrate that, and then I'll open it up if you have any questions about that. The first page is basically a simple concept plan, and what this does is it highlights, it's the full city block, and it highlights the items from the GO bond in order of preference and what we felt like was the highest priority. So item number 1, as you'll see, is the spray ground. Item number 2 is the playground. Then the synthetic ice rink is number 3. It's overlaid on the map above the depot. I'll explain that here in a little bit. And then we added a couple other things that we felt were kind of critical to the overall park in itself. So this was the concept plan that we come up with, and we feel like this is something that is not only usable for these things that we're trying to do now, but they also flow and blend in really well with the things that we're already doing. The Trucktoberfest, the truck events, the farmers market, the general use of the depot for mayor's tree lighting, for rentals and things like that. We feel like these amenities adding to that complement what we're already doing there. So if you go to the second page, the next thing is, this is a breakdown of cost estimates through CFS Engineering. They've gracious enough to help us with these things, to provide you some pretty conservative numbers, but some things that we feel like are right there. We're ready to go with it, and they are prioritized. So the first thing is the spray ground. We have a price tag of $264,222 for that spray ground. That's what we felt like was the top priority for this park. This ultimately the top priority for the bond projects. It'll be one of the, if not the first water aquatic feature that we provide as a city to the residents, and that's why we feel like this one really needs to be the top priority and come out with a bang or a splash, however you want to say that, and really wow everybody. So that is our top focus, is to ensure that piece is just knocks their socks off. Number 2 would be the playground. The playground is every park needs a playground. The playground's one of those things that are going to be, if the weather's nice, they'll be out there using it, whether it's winter, summer, fall, whatever the case may be. If it's nice, they'll be there. We have an opportunity, and I did list this in here, but we have an opportunity for a grant through Kaboom, and that includes design and matching funds. So we can take our funding of $192,500 and ultimately increase that by up to 50%, depending on how the grant lays out and ultimately if we're approved. And we've already initiated those conversations, so we're pretty excited about that. Kaboom is through Playcore, which is a large playground company that has several different sub-companies within them, so there's a lot to pick from, a lot to choose from, and we're really excited about that. Number 3 is the synthetic ice rink, and that is such a unique feature. We understand ultimately that these amenities are unique. Very few communities are fortunate enough to have a spray ground. Even more rare is a community fortunate enough to have an ice rink. The fact that we've made that commitment to do this it's really exciting. We as a staff are pretty pumped about it, and I know, speaking for the park board, because we've talked about it on several occasions, the park board's pretty excited about it as well. And we want to make sure we do this right. We recognize the impact it's going to have. We know what the residents will expect, and we know that when we provide this and they get there and it doesn't have that wow factor, the disappointment is going to be there, and we aim to please, and so we want to make sure that this is done absolutely correct. Given that, one of the ideas we had is to maximize our dollars and to maximize our space. It is a city block, but it's a small city block, and you guys have all been there. It's not a very big park, and we don't want to take away all the green space by just spreading everything out. So we've taken the concept of this ice rink and putting it under the depot, and that does a couple different things. We've already have the infrastructure there. The ground is already set, the concrete's there. It's really a matter of adapting that structure to accommodate the ice rink. The second thing it does is that it takes a depot, that picnic shelter that we have built, and makes it year-round, as opposed to just a spring, summer, fall event space. Now we can rent that, and we can utilize that even through the winter months during those. So we feel like we're making good use of space, and we're utilizing a facility we already have there. That ice rink, it just seems like it's a natural fit for underneath that depot, so we're really excited about that. We know that we feel like the $45,100 is more than enough to purchase the rink, but also be able to adapt the depot and do some neat things within that depot to make it look like an ice rink in those winter months. The budget for the GO bond was $600,000. So when we add all of those things up, we didn't come close to the $600,000, which is a good thing. I mean, we feel like our numbers are fairly conservative, and we're going to be able to bring this in within that. Clearly, there's no guarantee, but we want to present a proposal to you that maximizes those dollars. And the one thing missing from these 3 components, and the rest of the things already in the park, is connectivity. We want to make sure our residents can safely walk and access all of those things. Our estimates for a connecting trail, which would keep to our standards of a 10-foot wide asphalt connecting trail, and you can see that on the map. That's around $69,000, and that really brings us right up to our $600,000, and we feel like that is a good, solid project that meets all of our commitments. That's something that we as a staff can take hold of and do some great things with our community. However, one of the things that we know, the spray ground is going to be in the summer, and there's going to be additional amenities that are needed for that. Also, the ice rink is in the wintertime, and we're going to have a place to store these things, especially when we break the ice rink down. When we're having events and we're marketing the depot as a winter birthday party destination, so you can come out and have a winter party, we're going to have restrooms, things like that. So we went ahead and went a little farther in our project planning and developed out those additional amenities that makes this a complete park. And I can speak on behalf of the park board because they've allowed me to and given me direction to do this, but we feel like these other 2 components that we've added in this proposal are really what's going to help us make this park successful, make this park something that the residents are going to be excited about. So we've added a restroom facility. That's number 5. We feel like that is most next in line outside of our budgeted amount is restrooms. You got to have them. And I put in a spec sheet and a cut sheet for a particular one that we like, that we feel is really something that's going to enhance the look of the park, be something that we can cater and customize to our own style of the way we design the park out, and be able to be 12 months. This will be a facility that will keep open year-round, so you'll be able to just use it in all of our events. And the next thing, number 6, and that's the old post office facility that's on the new part of the park, the part that we purchased after the bond. We know that this park is, historically, it's important to what we're trying to do within the community. Having that facility being one of our, an original post office, it's not the original, but we know that it's been there a long time and was used for that. Being able to convert that into something that's usable was really important to us. And when we developed this out, what we wanted to do was take that particular structure and turn that into a storage facility for the ice rink. The rink comes in panels, and that they snap together, and then we can get into that later. But anyway, they break down into panels, and we need somewhere to store them. It felt like being on location, the less you move them, the less likely they are to break, having that there. But we also know that the need for concessions and all of those things that we would provide in terms of rentals for skates, or just the opportunity to lease skates out when they rent for birthday parties, things like that. We have to have somewhere to put those things. And so we felt like the post office would be the right fit. It's in the right location. It's close proximity to the depot. And so we provided cost estimates for what we feel like would also accommodate those two features. And I got to tell you, this is one of the most fun projects that I've had to work with the park board on. We've gone back and forth, we've argued over it, we've come to agreements on it, and it's been fantastic. And we feel like we've got a great project that we're presenting you. And I would say that on behalf of the board and at their direction, staff is asking the council at this time to consider utilizing funds that are in reserve for those additional projects, that number 5, which is the restroom, and that number 6, which is the post office. We feel like those 6 components will deliver to the residents exactly what the council and the park board have in mind. And we're really excited to be at this stage. And the next steps, what I would suggest is the council give us direction and how you would have us to proceed. And then once that's taken care of, then we will move forward with a contract with CFS Engineering, and we begin in design. And then we come back to you guys and show you how we progressed and where we're at in that. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions or turn it over to the mayor.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. To kind of step back a little bit on this, let's go back and kind of talk about the spray ground, because initially I think we thought and may have even told many people that the spray ground and the synthetic ice rink would be one and the same. And I know that because the spray ground flexibility for use of it with vertical features as well as horizontal features, just water coming out of the ground, wasn't actually going to cut it as far as from a Parks and Rec perspective, just the water coming up in cycles that you have, and apparently the board has talked about other features within that spray ground that would prevent an ice rink being on the same spot of ground. So you have now come up with a synthetic ice rink that would fit underneath the roof and actually be a much better facility, a lighted facility that folks could use into the evening hours, since wintertime usually gets dark a lot sooner. And you've kind of gone with that direction. The playground was always part of a feature that we talked about. And then as you talk about your number 5, with the restrooms, you know, I think initially folks thought that the post office would be converted for that specific purpose, but you have, as you said, you have storage issues, so we're going to need to have a storage facility on site, so you've gone a different direction with that. So I kind of want to let people, if they're listening to us tonight, to know that, you know, the plans that we drew up, and I said a year, it's been 2 years now, we drew up 2 years ago, have actually been modified in order to be a much nicer amenity. And if I've portrayed that differently than where you all have kind of brought this project, please speak up, because I think I'm speaking after talking to Mr. Fearborn and you a lot about where you've come from, or maybe you can even add to that.
Yeah, I'd love to add to that. Specifically with the spray ground, as we researched and looked at prices and stuff, the original concept was to have an amenity that overlaid. It was a spray ground in the summer and an ice rink in the winter. And what we found is it was going to be extremely expensive and most likely eat up the majority of our bond money just to do that one amenity. And so we started thinking out of the box in terms of separating them. What can we do differently? With the spray ground being separate from the ice rink, it did allow us to do more with the spray ground. We can do upright fixtures that are permanent. Our staff isn't breaking them down and moving them. The surface in itself would be a lot cheaper to develop because we don't have to account for leveling of an ice rink in the wintertime. So it just made more sense and a better bang for our buck to look at it as two separate amenities. That's when we began looking at the ice rink under the shelter. What can we do with the shelter, the depot, to make that usable year-round as well? So that's where the idea came of separating those two. In terms of the restroom and the storage facility, when we were looking at that originally, it was a restoration of that facility to have some storage, but be the public restroom facility. And as we began looking at that, considerable amount of restoration was going to have to occur to convert that into public restroom facilities, as opposed to what we're proposing, which is more of a shell where we kind of convert one end of it into a kitchen facility for concessions or rentals of the skates, things like that. But for the most part, it was much more cost effective to use it as a shell for storage as opposed to convert it into a restroom. We found this restroom, Superintendent Rulo and I and Superintendent McLean in one of our conferences. These are prefabricated concrete restrooms. They're top of the line. They are, I wouldn't say vandal-proof, but they are much easier to clean up and repair if vandalism happens. They're easy to maintain, and you can customize them to almost anything you want them to be, and they're very cost-effective. It's a pretty unique. It's a neat project, and you'll see one of those also going in through the grant down at Hawk Ridge Park. It won't necessarily be identical to it, but it's the same concept. So it is something that's becoming more and more popular in parks and recreation systems. We felt like doing that. We also got a better bang for our buck, even though it did add some expense a little bit because we did add a whole nother facility. We feel like both of them become much more usable, and the entire park the value of the park increases by having the two separate facilities.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody have anything? Ms. Abdelgawan.
I have a couple of questions. First, I just want to say I feel like as part of the GeoBond project, we did kind of promise a restroom, and over and over I hear when there's an event out there, the only thing missing is the bathroom, a place to wash our hands, that sort of thing. So I think that having a restroom there should be one of our top priorities. I want to clarify a little bit, Mr. Mustine, when you said you're asking to take the money for the restroom and the post office facility rehab from reserve, you don't mean from our city reserve funds. You mean from the budget line that we set aside for GeoBond overages reserve money? Okay, I just want to be sure everybody understands we're not taking money from our reserve funds from the city to pay for this. It is money we already set aside in this year's budget for overages on some of our projects, which we kind of expected. So let me see if I had one other note. Did you actually look into costs for rehabbing the post office building with restrooms, or you didn't even get that far in your exploration?
When we were having an initial discussion with CFS Engineering, part of that cost estimate, that discussion, was that that would be much more expensive than doing that. We didn't go extreme down the line as far as details that you were presenting you here. We felt like it was headed in that direction anyway, so we might as well, let's not waste our time and go that far to find out that we can't afford it anyway. Let's go ahead and move in a direction that we know that we could probably achieve.
Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with Sonia on the restrooms, and I'll go as far as say is that I see them as absolutely essential, if not mandatory, for this, for what we've got here. I commend staff and the Park Board on your improvements and your ideas. Fantastic. I guess, you know, anytime you have a water feature, I've been in different communities that have wading pools and that, and they have no restroom facility. And I would worry about Cryptosporidium, you know. It's, you know, we chuckle about it, but it's serious, you know. And that's why I say the restrooms are just essential, if not mandatory at this point. And I support that, you know. And especially if they are of the quality and the make and model that are easy to clean up after vandalism occurs, you know. So anyway, that's all I got. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple questions for maybe Mr. Mustine. On the bathroom facility, I really like the one you picked out. A couple quick questions on that, though. The construction estimate for $170,000, that includes the entire setup, is that correct?
Yes, sir. That cost estimate is actually very conservative. When we talk to the representatives from the company, that includes every addition that you can add to. So it has all the bells and whistles. It is a 12-month facility. It is the most you can add to it, and that is a purchase.
Now, does that company come and set it up themselves?
We design and we develop the infrastructure, and then we buy it from them. They come in and set it down, and then we finish
that. That includes the electrical, the plumbing, turnkey, everything?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then you also mentioned before about vandalism a few times. Would it be more cost-effective now to look at putting cameras in the park, and maybe on some of these buildings, than it would be to do it later, since we're putting in all the sidewalks and the trail?
I would say at this point, right now, we already have cameras scheduled to go in. We can look at making sure with Mr. Mayberry that, and he has seen this plan, so we can make sure that he feels comfortable that the cameras scheduled to go in will be adequate for this amenity.
All right, looks great. Thank you.
Mr. Olin, did you have something?
Yeah, I like, Mr. Messina, I like the layout. I like the ideas you all put together. I think it's very well thought out. I think that it will be well received by the public. The only thing that I see, maybe you've thought about this as far as capital expenditure in the following year, but it looks like there's a few details there that are not laid out in the cost estimate, such as cost of acquiring the skates, shelving for that, miscellaneous fixtures you need for snacks, or concessions, that kind of thing, padding for around the rink. You're going to have music, certainly, those kinds of things. But I like the overall concept, but I'm assuming that there's a little bit of cost layover here that's probably going to be pushed out into capital budget a year out on the part of the Parks Board, or finding some other funding source. Is that a correct assessment?
Yes, sir. From a staff level, we have already laid out plans on how we want to do these things. What the cost that you see here tonight is straight up for construction, and it does not have what I would call the guts of the building, all the stuff that's going to make it usable in terms of programming and serviceable for the public. So no, sir, we don't have those things listed for you tonight, but they are in the works, and we are preparing for those.
And then time frame on what we see in front of us as far as putting all this in. We think that without any major bumps in the road, we could have this basically completed and up by the end of this calendar year. Is that a correct assessment?
I would say that depending on the direction we get from council tonight, it goes to Park Board next week for first read, or for a recommendation, then a first and second read of the council in February. We go on to design, and we feel like we can be under construction early summer. And then I would definitely, I'll probably get in trouble from my staff after I say this, but I would say that it's our goal to have the ice rink in place for the mayor's tree lighting next year. And
Be outstanding.
And we would also anticipate the restroom. But like you said, no bumps in the road. I mean, we just got to go.
Nice work.
Yeah. Mr. Kellogg?
You said next year, do you mean 18 or 19?
He means this year.
This coming Christmas? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Christmas 2018.
Push that back to June.
I blame Mr. Holman. He said next year.
Yeah. Well, it depends on when we want to put the Christmas tree up, right? That's right. Ms. Abdelgo, it might be.
A couple of other questions, and forgive me if some of these things are already out there. A couple things that I've heard people talk about over maybe the last year and a half for TB Hanna Park are water fountains, which I noticed your pictures here have a water fountain, but the drawing here doesn't. Will there be a water fountain? And then another recommendation I've heard for that park is, and I think we've talked about, is a bike rack. Are either of those two things included?
The water fountain will be included on the restroom. It's one of the things that we can add to the exterior of the restroom if we choose to do that. As far as the bike rack, other just park furniture, those would be things that we would add on depending on how the budget comes out. If we've budgeted conservatively and we come in and we have additional funding, those are things that we can buy in additional picnic benches, things like that, bike racks, things like that. Outside of that, we can also budget that through the park board's budget, when we go through that as far as our operational budget and include some of those things. So they are not included in these. Those would be extras in that we would find a way to include those. I didn't account for those there because I didn't expect it to be that large of an amount that it would need to be accounted for, but also knowing that we would include those things because that does complete the park when you have those little things added in there.
Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for Mr. Mustine. As far as the restroom and like the type of cold that we're having today, is everything going to be protected, heated, so it can be open year round? Or do we don't currently have any restrooms that are year round, do we?
At this time, we do not have year-round restrooms, and from the discussions we've had with the manufacturers, yes, it would be open for use in weather like this. I don't know that I would recommend it, but it would be, yes, and that is that is one of the reasons why we selected this, is that it could be year-round, because this
and that had to have added to the cost, to the difference between a restroom that can only be open in,
yes, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Anybody from the park board have anything to add? Mr. Manson, you have anything to add?
No, sir. This was given due consideration, and the board agreed on it. We feel it is the best way to go for that park, and we hope that we get the support we need.
I understand. Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman?
One other thing that might be given consideration, you and I have touched on this a little bit, Mr. Mustine, but we've talked about the, quote, historic post office, which is truly not that historic. It's not that old, but the actual KCCNS depot was actually located there at Olive in Washington, where TB Hanna Station is today. I've provided Mr. Mustine with some digital photographs from the day. Might be worth consideration looking at those and see if you want to model that as opposed to the original post office. That's a truly historic building that dates back to the 1800s and was actually at that location. You're going with a railroad theme anyhow. Might be something worth considering. It certainly has distinctive architecture features to it, and I'm sure Mr. Mustine would be glad to share the photograph. If not, I'll be glad to email it to anybody.
Put a front porch on it?
I don't even think it had kind of an overhang, I think.
Did it? Yeah, there you go, hitching post. I like that. Anybody have anything else to add at this point? If not, I would go ahead and try to get a consensus from the council here as to move forward with it. Everybody's good? I think everybody's pretty good with it, so thank you. Got what you need on that, Nathan, to move forward? Okay. So you want to talk about Hawk Ridge Park now?
I sure do. Hawk Ridge Park, another one of our GEO bond projects, and we have just a fantastic idea that we wanted to present to the council tonight. I've already brought this forward to the park board, and we've discussed it at length on a couple of different work sessions and in one of our business meetings. Part of the bond projects at Hawk Ridge Park included the playground. And if you guys will remember, about a year ago when we initially presented you with the design for Hawk Ridge Park, it included not only just a core playground, but ultimately a playground master plan with different areas of a playground where we really stepped back and looked at what we wanted to do over the long term. As we began design and worked with our consultant with Confluence on Hawk Ridge Park and moved forward, an underlying theme just kept coming up in terms of how staff viewed the playground is, are we really delivering what we promised? Because what we said was an inclusive playground. And we wanted to make sure that what we're providing out there and what we're spending our dollars out there was really an inclusive playground. And to my own ignorance, I had to do some research on this. I had to go out and find out what is the difference between an ADA compliant piece of equipment and an all-inclusive piece of equipment. And there's a huge difference. And this is, I'll put a little plug in for our trainings and our conferences. This is one of the cases where going to a conference hooked us up with some folks that know that difference. And they're here with us tonight, and I will introduce them here to you in just a moment. But there's a huge difference between being ADA compliant and being all-inclusive. And if we promised an inclusive playground to the residents, then I wanted to make sure that we weren't missing anything and we were doing it to the best of our ability, because everybody deserves this. So we wanted to do something different. We wanted to do something unique, unlike anything else in Cass County, unlike anything else within our region that is in close proximity without driving 25, 30, 40 minutes to get to. We wanted something that allows Raymore to stand out and be different and draw people to us. So what we did was at one of our Missouri Parks and Rec conferences, and then also at NRPA when it was in St. Louis, there's a group, Unlimited Play, and I'll go ahead and have Natalie and Jim come up and have a seat. But Unlimited Play, they specialize in the development of all-inclusive playgrounds. And what I'm going to give a little brief introduction of them and how we met and how we got to where we're at. And then I'm going to let them talk a little bit about what they do, because they're the experts and that's why we brought them here. So tonight what we're doing is we've gone through this with the park board. So I just want to kind of throw my cards on the table here. What we're asking for from the council is, if you like this idea, you like this plan, we will come forward next Monday night with City Council with a contract ready to go. The Park Board has already recommended that we do that, so we've gone through that first step of the Park Board. So tonight we're looking for direction from the council. Is this the way you want to go? And if it is, we'll bring it to you next week. If it's not, then we'll step back and we'll keep looking and find a way to make sure that we deliver that promise. So Unlimited Play, this is Natalie and this is Jim, and they're, I'll let them tell you their little background of it. But I think what's exciting about this is it's something that's desperately needed. It's needed for our community. It's needed for our residents. They deserve it. Those folks who need it deserve it. And we feel like, staff feels like, and I know, I believe that Park Board also feels like this is the group to help us deliver that promise that we made. And so I think at this time, I'll turn it over and I'll ask if you want to do the video or if you want to talk a little bit, or you just direct us and we'll let that play out.
We're going to talk for a minute.
Okay.
And then do the video. Good evening. Thank you for the invitation to come and present tonight. We're going to start with just the history of Unlimited Play for just a second. So I am the founder and executive director for Unlimited Play. I see you have our brochure right in front of you. So if you look at that and that really good looking boy you see on the front page and the little girl next to him, that would be my son and his girlfriend, Gracie. And he was the inspiration behind Unlimited Play. So my background is recreation management. That's what my degree is in. I took every class in college that taught me how to build an ADA compliant environment. We measured hallways, we walked through buildings, and I graduated like every college student feeling like I knew exactly what I was doing. And then I had my first son, and he was born with a disability. So it was during this time, it was doctor's visit after doctor's visit, and you'll see it in the video, that suddenly I realized what I was taught in college as ADA compliant was not going to work for my child. And it started making me wonder how many other people are under the exact same situation, where a transfer station that's required on every playground you ever build. And it simply means that either of those children you see in front of you would pull up to the transfer station in their wheelchair. They'd have to pull themselves out of their wheelchair and crawl up the stairs, and somehow legally we say that's okay, and that is truly accessible. Zach has one friend that physically can do that transfer. And if she was here today, actually you'll see her in the video too, she would tell you it's absolutely humiliating that she'll do it every once in a while, but she often gets knocked over. And the humiliation of crawling while her peers are running by isn't worth it most of the time. So with all of that, I spent a couple years feeling desperate as a mother for something to give back to my son, something to give back what his disease had taken from him. And one day it hit, it could simply be the right to play. And as you watch this video, I want you to think about it's more than just the ability to go play like every other child. It was the environment where we could teach a basic principle that we all have something to give to this world. We just have to see each other's differences, similarities, and appreciate who we truly are. So for this, I want you to watch the video. Watch and think of, my goal was simply to create a place where people could see Zach for who he is, not just the little boy in the wheelchair. Every time, no matter what, we were invited to present at the Royals, and they tested it, everything. We got up and spoke, and nothing played.
Councilmember Kellogg will confirm it was playing when he walked in tonight.
Something. Did it?
If we take a recess, it will start up.
Well, I think while they're doing that,
yeah,
I want to go ahead and let's go ahead and talk about the playground itself. Okay, so we have a certain amount of money designated towards the playground, and what we wanted to do, we know that playgrounds are expensive. We know that the goal that we have for this playground is going to far exceed the budget that we have for it. And what I didn't want to do, and I'm sure Mr. Fearborn would also confirm this, is that we don't want to continue to just keep going back and asking for more, asking more. What can we do to deliver this promise without continuing to dip into our our own coffers. What can we do? And this is where, when Mr. Rulo and I first met Jim and Natalie, this is really what got us, is we're looking at the playgrounds and their projects and their cut sheets for their projects, and we're talking $500,000 to $800,000 to over $1 million playgrounds. And Steve and I are thinking, how can we do this? We don't have this, and we've never done it, and it's almost the fear of the unknown. We've never done it. And then it was like, well, why not? These guys have been doing this for over 10 years, and they're 100% of the time. They deliver what they promise every project they do. I mean, it's almost, you hate to say it, but it sounds like a sure bet. So where do we go? Well, how do we do this? What do we, and I know that puts a lot of pressure on them, but what I'm saying is, why not Raymore? Why just St. Charles? Why Independence? Why all of these others? Why not Raymore? We said we were going to do it. So, yeah, we said we were going to do it, and that's where we decided, okay, well, let's get into this. Let's see what they can do, and let's see what we can do, and that's when we went to Park Board, and that's how we're here. So, you got it?
So instead of being a fun and relaxing trip to the playground for my family, it's always a physically and emotionally draining experience. We go and we carry Zach from place to place, and I want you guys to imagine how many 5-year-olds come up to play when your mom is carrying you all over the playground.
How far would you go for the sake of your child? To enrich your child's life, to better her health, to make his life matter?
It's going to be a place where my son and the rest of my kids, all of your kids, are going to be able to come and play and interact side by side. They're all going to have fun, and while having that fun, they're going to be able to start to break down those barriers that exist right now.
It was Zachary Blakemore who inspired the vision and the work of Unlimited Play. It was a mother's love and dedication that said, you will not be denied the right to play. It is my dream to create play spaces where limitations are forgotten and differences are celebrated. Unlimited Play was founded to build only one playground. After Zachary's playground was completed, it was not the end of Unlimited Play, but only the beginning.
Today, we announce that O'Fallon's first all-inclusive playground we officially named Brendan's Playground.
All of you coming out today, we really anticipated a good crowd, but not like this. So thank you for believing in the work.
We had intentions of opening just one, and now we cannot believe the amount of calls that we receive from across the nation wanting an Unlimited Play playground. On a weekly basis, we're contacted from families just like ours wanting to provide a playground for their child to play.
With your help, we will continue to build and to meet the growing need for play spaces that enable all children and families to play.
At least for us, it's been more about him being able to interact with his friends.
Certainly want to thank Unlimited Play for all you do. You're making St. Louis a more fun place for more people.
Just know we are not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
Oh, let's play! We do not build just playgrounds.
When I go home today, I am totally going to have a dream about this.
We build independence and opportunity. We build self-determination and confidence. We build cooperation and socialization skills. We build the love for exercise and wellness. We build learning and problem solving. We build imaginations and dreams. We build memories for entire families. We build compassion and acceptance. We build community. We ask you to believe in us, to join us, and to invest in the magic of play.
We'll scroll through the next slides pretty fast, trying to respect your time. So we opened Zachary's Playground after raising $750,000. That was our very first playground. The city had a $150,000 passive park planned, and after listening to what we were trying to accomplish, decided to partner with us, and together we were able to fundraise the rest. It took us 4 years. It was our very first playground, and it turns out if you start a nonprofit, people want you to prove you're capable of accomplishing your goal. So the fundraising took a little bit longer than it typically will take. With that, I guess, yeah, just keep moving for a minute. This is Zachary's. You'll see as we scroll through some pictures, theming's really important. A lot of children with developmental disabilities can't create the imaginative play that is so important to them. So if we create that base, it gives them something to start with. Also, my biggest fear was when you opened a vendor catalog, it just had tons of ramping. And I didn't ever want people to pull up, look at the playground and think, this is just for kids with special needs, and drive away. That would defeat the entire purpose. We have the intentions of creating the best playgrounds out there that happen to be inclusive. So again, just part of Zachary's. Brendan's Playground, we had a major donor who called and said they had $250,000 and asked us if we could find a city willing to match dollar for dollar, and then we helped fundraise the rest of that project. Discovery, the same donor, called again and said, let's just do one more, another $250,000, and we found one more city to help us. And with that, I'll let Jim tell you his story.
Thank you. I'll be quick. So I'll just go back in time a little bit when Natalie first started this. So about 14 years ago, and my son also was born with a disability, and at the age of 10, we had to put him into a wheelchair. And for a couple years before that, there was this, and this is respectfully saying this crazy mom all over the news, the TV, the radio, talking about inclusive playgrounds. And nobody at that time understood what's inclusive, what does that mean? We didn't know either, but when my son was put into a wheelchair, he wasn't able to go play sports. He could only go watch his brothers. At recess, all the kids would go out onto the playground that had the mulch and all that, and he'd sit there and watch. And then she opened Zachary's, and it was unbelievable. We took Jake to Zachary's Playground for the very first time, and it changed our world. It changed our dynamics of our family, our community, the friends. Everybody was coming out, and Jake gained confidence. Jake became more aware of everything. He was kind of the center of the playground, and he made friends, and it absolutely changed the whole dynamics of the community, our family, and absolutely amazing. And so I had been involved with Unlimited Play, and I had my own screen printing and embroidery business, and I sold that and came to work with Natalie, with her mission. And it truly is a mission for us. It is a nonprofit, and we do this because we don't want any child not to be able to sit on the sidelines like our boys and others do. So the very first time Natalie took me to Zachary's, I had just been there watching my son and watching this magic kind of happen with all the kids. But she took me onto the playground, and she showed me her 4 years of what it means to build a truly inclusive playground. And we went through that when you guys came down and visited our playground. The amount of thought that goes into every aspect of the playground, and we could talk for hours, and we don't want to do that now, but she is known as the expert throughout the country on inclusive playgrounds, and well-deserved for the time and effort and sweat and tears that she put into this. But it's with great thought as to why and what makes it inclusive and the results that come out of it. And we've seen thousands of families affected, and the gains the kids receive by coming out to these playgrounds, and the community spirit that comes out of these playgrounds is absolutely amazing. And not only did she create that, this has turned into an entire program for us. And I won't go into all the details of how the program works, but we've talked about how Unlimited Play will come in and work with you as a partner with the city to not only just build a playground, but to engage the community, educate the community, let them understand the magic of what happens, how you break down these barriers on a playground, and truly understand what inclusive play means. And that's part of what we do, part of our mission, coming in, working with the city. And of course, the design, from the design to all the tools that we provide, we'll break down, and we don't have to go through, but it's up on the screen. We'll develop a catalog of all the individual pieces for sponsorship, to go to the community and say, hey, are you interested in sponsoring a piece of equipment? All the way from that to, of course, the groundbreaking, the community build, and then the grand opening, and all that encompasses our program when we work with your city to bring a truly inclusive playground. And your point was so well taken. There are so many different playgrounds and catalogs that say they're accessible or inclusive, and they're not. They still leave kids behind. They still cannot get to the top. There's not inclusive features involved. And so we won't get involved in a playground that's not truly inclusive, because that's what we do. That's our mission. And so we are very excited to work with you and bring a truly inclusive playground and watch this incredible community that you guys have really come together and really start to understand and appreciate what inclusive playgrounds mean, not only for kids. We get veterans that call all the time. They come back with disabilities. Hey, I want to play with my kids. Grandparents say, hey, I want to play with my kids. Disabled parents who have been in accidents, and I could tell you some stories of that, who want to take their kids to the playground, and before they couldn't get on the playground, and now they can. So it really changes and makes a huge difference in your community. We're very excited to work with you guys. So
I think we'll end just on this slide right here.
Yeah.
So we do realize when we go to cities and talk, you guys always have a tight budget. We haven't ran into a city yet who said they have endless money to spend on playgrounds. So with that, when we look at the funds, you guys are planning on building an ADA, or typically an ADA compliant playground. To build truly inclusive costs a lot more money, and we recognize that, and the surfacing that you would use, the ramping, the fencing. So with that, part of the services we offer are we are a nonprofit. So we come in and help you fundraise, establish a local team, do the catalog, do prospective research. You have us within a 3-hour drive, and I'm sure you're not surprised. Jim and I love to do these presentations. So we would come and help present and talk to the companies interested in participating in this. On the drive here, we just closed, we partnered with the city of Wentzville for a $1.1 million project, and it looks like we're done. So we're really excited. That will be constructed this spring. It'll probably open end of May, and you should all join us that day. It's actually Jake's playground, Jim's son. So with that, that is one of the services we offer, is we have done this successfully, all the way from we worked with a local charity here for a $225,000 project, all the way up to the one we're about to open, $1.1 million. Each has their own unique stories and how they came about. The knowledge of ADA versus truly inclusive. Recently, I was talking to a landscape architect, and he defined it really clearly to me, where accessibility means you can get there. You can actually get to the playground, but to be inclusive, you have to be able to participate and actually play on the equipment itself. There's an extreme difference there, and we make sure it's truly inclusive. Time and expertise. Not everyone is a fundraiser, so to go and do these presentations, to have someone like Jim or I, and we hope to find someone like that in your local community, do the presentations, to speak about the partnership they have with the city and the value that you guys show of how important inclusiveness is for you, is invaluable. Those are the kind of people you need to do these presentations, and we'll bring all of that to the table. Can we answer questions?
One basic question. Nate, what do we have budgeted now for playground equipment or that particular area?
Right now, the estimates for the Hawk Ridge Park plan have the playground just a little over $100,000 for that area. That does include, or doesn't include, because it is the grading and the ground prep. That will be done. There's $100,000 for equipment and installation. That is what we have.
Right now, there's a significant deficit between
Yes, sir.
what you're proposing and what had been previously proposed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd go ahead and open it up now for any discussion or questions folks might have or comments. Anyone? Mr. Holman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mustine, applause to you. I like the words that I heard. I like unique, putting Raymore on the map. I was one of those guilty of thinking that ADA and all-inclusive were the same thing, and that's what we were going to get out of this. Especially if we can get help with the financing through fundraising. I think this is something that this community, even beyond the edges of Raymore, can get into. I'd heard a little bit prior to this. I understand there's only one of these in the area, and that's in Western Shawnee. Is that correct?
I think that's the closest one.
The closest one?
There's one at McCoy Park and Independence on the Missouri side. That would be the closest to us on the Missouri side of the state. And then there is it the Leawood or is it the Shawnee?
There's Leawood, I mean,
There's a couple on
St.
the
Joe's,
Kansas
Platte
side.
County, but nothing, I mean, ideally, a family would have a playground like this within 10 minutes, right? And there's nothing like that for the residents here.
Great work.
We would definitely be the furthest south in the metro area that would be available to the Cass County, Bates County, even further south. So it is something that would be unique in our area, in our region.
Sounds like we could maybe even expect to draw people in from outside the city, which is another desiring element of all of our amenities within the city, is to bring people in to showcase Raymore and to build our economic growth, of course, as well.
Yes, sir. I would also add that, not to forget that the grant through the Department of Conservation with MDC at Hawk Ridge Park has an ADA compliant fishing dock, the fishing jetty. So the restrooms, the prefabricated restrooms we talked about, they will also meet those regulations. So we're developing Hawk Ridge Park into being that destination park for folks with those needs.
Sure. How much more planning is this going to take? I mean, it sounds like we're kind of kicking the plan down the road a little bit because this is a little bit more to chew on than what we'd originally planned for that portion of the park. What are you looking at with as far as a time frame, if everybody here is willing to kind of go in that direction?
If the council approves tonight, what we'll do is next week we'll go first read and the second read, and then we'll immediately go into our design and what we want to do. I would say probably a couple months worth of organizing our fundraising efforts, our design. Obviously, we'll bring that back to the park board and the council. You're not seeing a design for our park tonight. We'll bring that back to you. But to answer your question, yes, the rest of Hawk Ridge Park will be at a complete state, and we will still be fundraising, which also actually is in favor of us because we have that ability to target that area when people are out at the lake fishing or at the amphitheater for concerts. They see what's there, and it will help in that fundraising effort. So I would hesitate to put an actual time frame on it, but it will be completed after Hawk Ridge Park. The rest of the park is finished.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question, was that, is that something that we can continue to work on while we're developing the other portions of the park?
Absolutely. The Hawk Ridge Park plan continues to move forward. We're in the permitting process now. This will not stall the rest of that work.
Okay.
It will move forward without this playground.
Mr. Holman.
Thank you. A follow-up question, I think, for our guests. So you spend a couple of months with staff if this goes through, and you design a park and you bring it back to us and it's got a price tag attached to it. Just using one of your examples, let's say it's $700,000 or $600,000 short. Is your typical MO to say, okay, we're going to fundraise and we're not going to build anything until we get to the dollar amount that we have, or, okay, we can go ahead and do our grading and build the base and then we phase this in as we go?
So our hope is that we get to do it all at once, but we always design knowing we may have to phase the project. within that. And we'll sit with your staff, we'll listen to what you guys say to determine what that budget is. We sit with some cities and they'll say, we have $50,000, we want to build $1 million project. Jim and Natalie, can you raise all the money? And we'll say, absolutely not. No, we want to go about this in a really, and plan it so we're successful, right? So we want you guys to analyze your side, we'll analyze the fundraising side, and together we can make this happen.
When we put this together as well, we'll work on the design, and we'll break it all out as far as concrete work, how much of that we estimate, fence, how much of that will be, and then it's not all dollars in your pocket. We can go and try to find in-kind through your connections, through our connections, and you may knock off $100,000 just in concrete work of somebody in town or around town that wants to do in-kind on that. Fencing, you may find someone that says, you know what, we work with Lowe's sometimes, and it depends on the area and which ones, but sometimes they'll put us into their program and donate the labor and fencing, so they might knock off another $50,000 off of that. So there's ways to chip away at it, as well as bring in the funds, but also work through the in-kind, which kind of helps get to your bottom number.
Sure. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess what my concern is kind of a good concern on, we've already seen it tonight. You were here for it. Staff comes to us and Park Board comes to us and say, we've got some improvements we'd like to make, and
Oh, yeah.
we change some plans. I think we are all, I know we are all very cognizant of monies in that, and but I also know that the way we work together is that if we're going to spend the money, we want to do it, and we want to do it right. You heard that from Mr. Mustine tonight also, is that he's not going to bring anything to us unless it's a home run.
We spent a day driving around with them, we know that.
So, I guess what my concern would be is that if we approve, we give consensus to approve the design and contract for the design, that this is going to be a project that we're looking at down the road. I can easily see us, seeing what comes out of it, and then that grow from there. What in that case is that if the best case scenario, we come back, we say we want this, but we want something more. We want something also that, because I don't think, so many times I've never seen that, when we make a decision, that decision is final. So many times it just grows and it becomes bigger. Can you address that? How would we go about that, if we did decide that we wanted something more splash pad type?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the same direction I was going with it. What's our next step? How do we get where we want to be, if not a year down the road, or at the end of the Hawk Ridge Park project, it might be something where we're still raising money for that particular project. And so how do we progress? Right now, you're asking for us to approve just the design, correct?
Yes, sir. Tonight, we're asking for approval to contract with them and move forward. I would say, in efforts to answer both questions, we have the design in place, we're fundraising, it does kind of stall, and we're at this lull. We're in a good position from a park board's perspective in that we've taken that master plan at Hawk Ridge Park that we talked about last year, and we've already funded 2 components every other year. So in 2 years down the road, we have $150,000 or $125,000 designated for playground at Hawk Ridge Park. We can just lump that right in there and take us to the next level. So we're in a position to where, if time prolongs, we have the money budgeted in there that will help kind of kickstart it again and keep us rolling.
Sure.
So, but at the same time, just like we've talked about, nothing prevents us from taking what we have and just kind of going little pieces at a time if we feel like what we need to see is progress rather than kind of waiting and doing it all at once. There's a couple different ways of doing that. It's really a matter of how the council and the park board wants us to proceed.
Sure. And, and recently we just kind of remade ourselves from RAMAC to an endowment fund where we are moving toward the potential for the city to actually grow through the efforts of donations in particular areas. And I think this is a perfect project to take on with regard to our restructuring there. We get the 501c3, then those in-kind contributions become much more meaningful for the contributor as we move forward on the project. So I think this is a project we can all get behind, as Mr. Holman said. It's pretty awesome, actually. Does anybody have anything else? Mr. Holman?
Yeah, kind of a comment to dovetail off you and Councilmember Kellogg's, and then a question. I think a little bit of the fear is we don't want this to drag on into perpetuity. We want to remember that this was a promise to the citizens, and I think that they're willing to wait for a better product, certainly, no problems with that. I just don't want to see us drag this out for 6 or 7 years, and you've already talked about some opportunities we can have to stay within a reasonable time frame of making the promise. What we can't afford, I guess, is mission creep, I think is what Kevin was getting to. Well, we need to add this piece now, and we didn't budget for this piece, and it keeps getting large, and we drag out the time and expense on this. So to that end, what would be the cost of the consulting and design phase that we're talking about now?
The MOU or the contract is a one-time fee of $10,000, and that includes consulting, in terms of working with staff, design of the playground, fundraising efforts, as well as all the way, construction management, all the way through the end of the project. Stop me if
Sure
I'm wrong.
does. And even when you're saying the nonprofit status, we have that. So the tax deductible donations will come through us unless you guys are able to handle them, so donors feel confident they can give.
And what, I know you've not done any of the preparation or the look at this yet, but typical city of our size in this type of area, what would be a reasonable amount to say we would expect from fundraising?
So I would say our average project is about $500,000. It depends. A lot of times the cities come with about a third of that to the table. We hope to find a major donor for another third, and the rest is a grassroots movement, really trying to find the funding from all of your service clubs and local businesses and residents.
Grants as well.
Yeah, and grants, so.
Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Douglas.
I was just wondering about grants. So who does the grant writing? Do you guys write grants? Would that be us writing grants?
It would be a cooperative effort as far as the writing, and I know that you guys have turned them in before, and I've also seen where the city has also submitted it on behalf of the project as well. So the grants are, there's so many out there, and they're so tricky, and yet they're so valuable if you can land them. And I think neglecting to apply for them is just throwing money away. I think it's one of those things that I know me and my staff will continue to focus on, even on, side by side with the fundraising efforts from a grassroots level.
I think part of the value of our partnership is some we can apply for and the city can't, some the city can apply for and we can't, and it's just working together as a team to find out the best way to go about it.
Yes.
Natalie, I have a former colleague and dear friend who's a city councilman in Cottleville, and I saw your name was on the,
yes.
That Cottleville was on the list. How big is their project?
Their project, gosh, I want to say 726,000, something like that.
725, right.
And you probably know Bob Ronkowski. He actually has a special needs granddaughter too.
Yeah.
I know Bob.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah Jim knows Cottleville really well.
St. Charles Community College.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he did a nice fundraiser, a police versus firemen softball game, and the proceeds went towards the Cottleville project.
Awesome.
Yeah,
thank you.
He's.
I'll give Bob a call and see how he's.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting that project done.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay.
The local fire department there played a huge role in that project.
Mr. Holman.
I support the idea. It's clear that staff is excited about this. It's clear that our guests are excited about this. We've mentioned some support, but I know you brought it to us. You certainly have signed off on this, but I'd really like to hear from Parks Board, because this will be a signature project of yours for quite some time. So I would really be interested in hearing kind of your comments and thought process on this.
Yeah, great. Yes, sir.
Jay, I would answer that, or Mr. Holman, I would answer that by, this is so unique. When we have looked at this and looked at it over as a group and haggled on it and everything that we wanted to do, the idea of bringing something here that's unique is amazing. We've talked about that just before and just passing conversation, that the ability to bring something that people will want to bring people to, which will help the whole city, is incredible as far as we're concerned. And that's what we're excited about for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like the idea that it's a community project. It's not something the city is completely funding, you know, that the tax dollars or however you want to word that. I mean, it is something that we're going to be able, as a community, to be able to help fund and be able to be involved with. And I love the story. I think you should play the video that you played for us the other night. I mean, it is an incredible tearjerker. I was telling a friend about it before the meeting. I'm like, if they play that video, it's done deal.
The tearjerker one.
I will send that video in a link. I didn't load it up, but I'll make sure that everybody gets to see that.
You guys are probably going, which one are they talking about? But yeah, I mean, I love your company. I love your story. I didn't know that. I assumed your background was you had a child with special needs and then got the degree. So, wow, what an incredible story. So thank you for what you do. I think this is such a needed project. I think it's a great project for Raymore. I'm excited for it. I'm behind this 100%. So,
Sheldon?
I'd like to say, as one of the 3 surviving members of the Park Foundation, that this offers a single target. I can't tell you how difficult fundraising has been for us. We have some old money, but the main difficulty is that we were talking about, I have a discussion with a gentleman in Lee Summit whose grandkids go to Ray-Pac. He's got a 6-figure donation in his heart, but he has hesitated because he wants a single target. He does not want commingled funds. He wants a project. This is one of the first times that we can present someone a project.
Sure.
Of interest. The fundraising is going to be very difficult, but we have a single target now. Before, we were speaking in general terms.
We'd be happy to go talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jane, go ahead.
This has particular importance to me and to my parent peers. I've been watching Unlimited Play for quite a while. I've brought it up at meetings in the past. And I'm just very excited to see. I don't have a physically disabled child, but he has sensory issues, and raising him and trying to go to a park was always difficult. And so I was thrilled when McCoy came to be, but by the time it came to be, my son was past that, and now he's in a virtual play world, so. But anyhow, so I know a lot of parents and stuff, so I'll reach out to them and let them know you're looking for somebody to kind of help sponsor that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, do you have something?
Yes, I do. I want to piggyback what my colleagues have said. This is a unique project. Staff has done a great job bringing ideas forward. Another unique is the synthetic ice rink, which is unique to the area. And you guys call this one unique to the city, and I feel this one is going to be a big enough project. The ice rink will probably do it too. This is more of a regional project. This isn't just for our city. Raymore becomes the keystone of this project, and it brings people to our city. But I really think this is going to be a regional one, not only with our fellow communities, but the counties around us, including southern Jackson County, the Grandview area, southern Lee Summit. I think this is going to be huge for us. To be honest, this is the first we've met you folks, but the passion is awesome. And Nathan mentioned it, and he said every time, they're so passionate about this, and every time, and he lights up when he talks about you guys, and now I can see why. And it is going to be a community effort, not only for the residents and the citizens, but also from our business community should be invested in some of this. I do have one question, and what is the average length these projects take? I know some of it's how much money's already there, ready to go, but are we, and we've kind of alluded to it, and we've talked about, is it going to take so long? They just keep talking about it. I'm kind of done here, and I want to see. And would you suggest phasing it just to keep that effort going, or say, nope, this is the plan, there's the big picture, look.
So our average is about 2 years from signing the contract, going through design and fundraising, to having the playground in the ground. I would not suggest phasing it to begin with. I'd say let us give it a shot to raise all the money and have one big grand opening. My only concern with phasing is sometimes residents may say, well, this is so good already, you know, and it can go the opposite, right? You build something, they want even more. But I'd like a shot at do it right the first time.
Good point. Mr. Burke.
I was going to follow. To your point, a lot of these projects become what we call destination playgrounds. So people do come in from out of town, and they will seek these playgrounds out.
Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was really excited about this, and then when I got to the part where it talked about disabled veterans, it's something that I've been thinking about. My grandfather lost his leg in World War II, and I really think the type of sports that I play as a man were affected by the fact that my grandfather was in a wheelchair. It affected the things that he did with my father, which, you know, went in my direction as well. And it's definitely another aspect to bring all ages. We talk about our community for all ages. I've got a sister and brother-in-law that are both disabled, and when my children were little, it was a lot of work to bring them to a family event if it was going to be at a park, because we had to figure out how to you know, we were going to get them there and all of their needs met as well, even though they're adults. This is such an all, when we say inclusive, it's such an all-encompassing thing for our community and the outlying areas as well. I think it's just fabulous.
Mr. Manson, did you have something?
Yes. Being a person of few words, basically, this is a project we need. It serves the community as a whole, the region, as Brian said, but more importantly, we're presented now with an opportunity to do something that has often been overlooked. And that being said, I know I support it 100%, and everything that goes with it, including the fundraising. Thank you.
Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Initially, I saw some of the price tags on this, and I was a little shell-shocked. And my wife is a teacher in the district here, and she works with special needs kids. And I've watched her over the years, and it seems like the needs of these children grow more and more, and there are more of these children every year. So I think Brian hit it right on the head. It is going to be a regional project if we do this. And it would be great to see money come from the other communities, especially on the Kansas side. I'd love to see some Kansas money come over here. And quickly want to say thank you for your efforts, and to the Park Board. It's great to see your passion as well, too. It's fantastic. Thank you.
I saw a couple of hands. Melinda?
Do we have a ballpark idea of where we want to be? I mean, no? I mean, the one good thing about Hawk Ridge is it's huge. I mean, we have...
It is huge.
We want to get past this first step first.
All right. Just wanted to go there.
Yeah, Mr. Ullman.
I have one more thing, and this is beyond the project itself, but I think that the Parks Board should be commended. From the time that I was on Parks Board with Sonia and Brian, we struggled a number of times to make a cohesive connection with the City Council at the time, and that time has passed us now. You now have brought us a project that you all support 100% and speak with one voice, and this is a bold and aggressive project that's outside of the scope of the funds that were available, but you're looking at other ways of doing this and ways of not just giving us a playground or a baseball game or field, but something unique, that's something that will be talked about and remembered in this city for a long time. A job well done. Thank you from myself.
Thank you. Ms. Abdel, go ahead.
Thank you. And I agree, to piggyback off Jay, I love that you guys are thinking outside the box. It's a little scary sometimes to think outside the dollar signs, especially. But I think this is a great project. Everybody here knows I'm an educator. I work with kids of all ages, and even our school playgrounds aren't inclusive for our kids. And so this is really, really important to get something like this in our area. One question, we've all kind of talked about how this will be a regional project, but also very much a community project. So in fundraising, we know we'll fundraise locally. Will we also reach out beyond our city limits, and how far beyond our city limits will we reach out to fund the project knowing it will be regional?
We certainly, typically when we build, we'll reach out through the entire county at least, and we hit all the service clubs. A lot of times Lions, Kiwanis, Rotary, they actually work together and draw from not only the local group, but the other surrounding ones in the counties. We'll go after grants like Christopher Reeves Foundation, right? That's a national grant, not just local grants. Any way we can go, we'll go. I mean, this is grassroots fundraising. So every single person in this room that said you're supportive of this project, we're going to call you. Not for fundraising, but you guys know your city and your region better than we do, right? So if we're cold calling, we may not get in the door. If you guys can talk passionately about it like you have tonight with the people that you know and why you think it's so important, it will make our job a lot easier and the project a lot faster.
We'll do what we call a prospectus, an analysis of your community, maybe a 50-mile radius. And that results will be companies, other nonprofits, other organizations that have given money before to projects, that have foundations that may give. So it's a great starting point as we sit down with the committee and we say, well, here's the prospectus, here's other businesses, and we can kind of analyze that and go through who do you know, who you don't know. Let's get in touch with them. They have a grant that we can apply for. They have a foundation. Let's go talk to them. So we do that behind the scenes kind of work to bring all that together. So we're not just throwing darts. We have a game plan behind it.
Mr. Kellogg?
I can't really remember exactly what I was going to say, but what I was going to finish up with, I'm on board, for approving this to come before us next Monday night for consideration. So, not to shut anybody off, but I feel like it's time to get going on this. I definitely don't want this to, I'm sorry, Jay. Here's where I'm at. I don't want to see this be the very last thing of this GO bond money 9 years down the road, 1 year before we go for the next one. I agree with, making sure that the plan is in place, the money is there, so we can have that grand opening, that big shebang, at one time. I fully support that, and I think that's sound and that's great. I just don't want this to be 9 years out the road, that, where we're all sitting around this table and we all have to answer those questions for the next 9 years. Well, where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? Well, it's coming. We know it's coming. I think we all agree with that, but this is something. I remember the last time, that was it. The last time we spoke about the Hawk Ridge Park playground. I remember seeing pictures and pictorials of a movable, like a one-person, one-child attraction, and it was like a roller coaster, and it was of gravity fed, and I loved that idea because it was so unique. And I remember saying that, in place of that, because that fell down because it was just a one-person thing, and I think we all agree. But I remember saying, I love that idea, and I challenged staff at that time to have something different, but just as big, with that big pizzazz that would bring the people in. And I heard the term tonight, a destination, and that's kind of what I felt then too. And that's what this meets that, folks, and that's why I support it.
And I was encouraged with your 2-year kind of commitment. So that's, I think that's awesome. I think it's definitely doable.
We've never taken 9 years, first off. And we do, I know, we do recognize after about 2 years, your community starts to lose faith that this is going to happen. We have sometimes had to go beyond 2 years, but that's when we analyze, do we phase this project, right, to keep the momentum going? So I'm on board with you. We are not going to take 9 years, and we're going to adjust this project if it starts to go that way.
Is everybody good moving along with that? All right. Awesome. So Well, that kind of concludes Part A of our agenda tonight. Bill, do you have any final words for the
No, sir.
for the good of the,
No,
the
other
good of the
than
cause?
thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you to the members of the board. This is a great project, and not just this, but all the work that you all have had to do since the things happened 2 years ago, and we appreciate you sticking with us and hanging in there. So thank you very much. And that brings us to the next item, which is our quarterly department reports. Jim, where do you want to start?
Thank you, sir. The council has in the past asked to have quarterly reports done from both our communications department and our economic development department. So if we can, we'll start with communications department. Mike Geeky will make a presentation on the quarterly report, and then that'll lead into Mr. Tapp on economic development.
All right. Where'd he go? Did he leave? Oh, there he is. Oh, I thought you said Mr. Tapp. Mr. Eakey's starting first. Oh, okay.
The opening
Sorry.
act.
Sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, sir. Want to be respectful of everyone's time, as I know we are getting kind of late in the hour, but wanted to also give as much of an in-depth presentation as I can about the activities and the projects and the communications department for the final quarter of 2017. It's very easy for me, and the kind of the caveat I want to give before I dive into the report itself, it's very easy for me to gloss over some of the data and the statistics very quickly. I can speak very rapidly because I live this day in and day out, and I'm very passionate about the work that myself and Melissa McGee are doing in the communications department. And so as I'm going through this, I don't want anyone to hesitate to stop me, have me back up, explain something. I can go in depth into something, or, if at any point I'm talking about some of our, email bounce rates or activation rates and you want me to move forward, just go ahead and kind of give me the wrap it up sign, and I can do that as well. But I wanted to be as thorough as possible because I know, and my hope is, it is conveyed into this report that to me, communications is incredibly important for what we do at the city on a daily basis. From everything from the day-to-day postings on Facebook to the review magazine that goes to every resident, we could hit the whole gamut of projects that I think our residents benefit from when it comes to the items that we put out to them for their consumption. And so starting off of my report tonight, what I wanted to highlight were some of the top level projects that we undertook near the end of the year. Started off with a couple of projects of the council table at the farmers market that I thought was fairly successful. Also at the Ward 4 town hall meetings, we took a bit of a different tactic on promoting and programming the Ward 4 meetings, and I thought we had a really good response with about 60 residents in attendance. All very active, engaged, and it was interesting after when I asked, how they heard about it. The postcard was a big help, as well as some of the purchased ads that we did online. Folks came ready with questions. We gave them an opportunity to ask questions both in person or, there as part of the audience, or they could write their questions on a board that we had at the back that had some prompts on it, and really generated, I thought, some good conversation. Although it started before the start of the fourth quarter, it really, I think, dominated a lot of the communications in the last few months of 2017, and that was the trash service communication. This really required a lot of heavy lifting on the front end because we wanted to make sure, one, that our residents knew a change was coming in trash service, and two, we wanted to make sure that they were aware of what those changes were. Wanted to educate them and really get them engaged in the process of selecting the new bins, making sure they knew their new trash days, as well as a host of other items. And so I included here really an A through H of everything that we did tactically to make sure that our residents knew what was going on with that service change. And at the end of the day, I think we were able to what we call, they're called touch points. We were able to essentially touch residents with the information about half a dozen times in that last quarter to ensure that they had the information. Of course, no surprise, even with the change and as new trash containers were being delivered, we still received a lot of phone calls with questions. And so this kind of allowed the communications department to take the lead in bringing together some of our folks who were receiving those phone calls, making sure that they had the answers in front of them, some of the scripting in front of them to answer questions. And also we, Melissa and myself, or Ms. McGee and myself, acted as kind of a customer service liaison between Jim's Disposal, our folks, and our residents. And we were able to help get some questions answered, get some service issues resolved as quickly as we could. And you can kind of see kind of what we did there on through those that letter H. The fourth item, and kind of starting off the second page, and this feels like a long time ago, but we also had the charter election campaign. We provided a mailer, we did online outreach, answered questions online, and did similar to what we did with the trash communications, answered phone calls, and made sure that our folks who were taking those phone calls were briefed up enough about the charter election, or at least could get our residents to the places online where they could find answers. A great resource was the reporting that came out of that Charter Review Commission report, or the report that they put together, as well as just the basic information of what the 16 questions were going to be. And I think the dedicated homepage, as well as the educational materials we put online, turned out to be successful. All informational, absolutely. Number 5 and number 6 kind of go hand in hand. The fifth item, Ms. McGee really stepped up and helped out with a number of fundraisers targeted at the animal shelter, as well as assisted the police department with their No Shave November campaign. And this was a great campaign where she was able to take photos of the officers, post them out, and provided a nice spotlight on the police department that I don't think, they don't always get that positive light shined on them enough. And so this was an excellent opportunity to shine that light for an entire month. And at the same time, they were able to raise $2,500 for a great cause. Same thing with the animal shelter. We're able to kind of mix both our Arts Commission work and the Animal Shelter fundraiser for a Pop Art Your Pet paint event. Got to bring some good supporters of the animal shelter together and raise a good amount of money as well. And then the foundation, we just this last week, the RAMAC Board of Directors gave the final approval on the updating of the foundation, and so now we have a community foundation in the works moving forward. And I think tonight is a great example of one of just many projects that we have been brought to our attention that are going to be a great fit with that foundation and are going to really see that board do some great work. Number 7, and kind of second to the last item that I wanted to highlight, so the communications department undertook a new project as part of our customer service focus. It was where we are now bringing together on a quarterly basis all of the staff members who work here in the lobby, in the PD lobby, the Parks and Rec lobby, as well as the Public Works Operation office. And the goal is each of these members, provide a vital customer service to our residents who step into the lobby on a daily basis. And each of those members work for a different department, have a different department head, and never really have the opportunity to collaborate or talk to one another about some of the problems that they see on an ongoing basis. By bringing them together and just having a real simple chat of what are things we from an administrative level or even a communications level could be doing better, we were able to get some great answers, and we're able to implement some things pretty quickly, such as sending out just weekly information about events that are going on so that everybody's aware. They were also able to provide some great information and input as we begin looking at the lobby remodel project and how the lobby and the physical construction of that lobby is going to help or best serve them as they do their work. And so got some great information there, and we'll be continuing that project as well. And then finally, we've been working the communications department on some annexation packets. These are some informational pieces that we have been sending out to folks along 58 Highway as just informational meetings with residents. And while we are currently just exploring the voluntary annexation process, it really has been a nice piece that has helped spur a lot of conversation with those residents. It really is, and I've attached it in this packet, but it provides a good list of some of the services that we provide in the city, some of the benefits of annexation, and even just gives an update of where we are as a city in that process. It's been enlightening to hear some of the conversation that has happened as a result of residents receiving that packet and having questions and bringing that to our attention. The next big area, and the one that has overridden a lot of the communications effort, has been our branding effort. The big project that I think everyone has noticed is in the last quarter of 2017, all of the city vehicles and fleet vehicles had received a new logo. So they now have the new logo and their department signature underneath the Raymore logo itself. And so all of the vehicles are finished with that. The sign project we are getting ready to kick off here in the next month or so, and we're really looking forward to having kind of those last few pieces put in place. So with digital media, it's always really difficult to judge how successful your digital media, and when I talk about digital media, mostly talking about our social media. It's easy to point to social media and say, well, this person has so many followers, well, another city has 1,000 more followers. One measure that I have found is really successful is to look at our population and kind of compare that and come up with a ratio that, based on the number of followers we have and how large our population is, I'm able to come up with a good percentage that gives me an idea of how large of a segment within our population are we truly influencing with the information we put out there. And as you can see in comparison, Raymore against Belton, Grandview, and Harrisonville, we have a pretty strong coverage rate, and it shows you we rank pretty high or pretty high when it comes to some of those other cities. And then finally, in our Arts Commission area, this is a big project area. Just finished the new sculpture, or cut the ribbon a couple months ago on the new sculpture at 58 Highway in Dean. And we are getting ready to, and next week we'll be meeting with our muralist who will be painting a new mural, a historic mural at Memorial Park. And so we're really looking forward to seeing the ideas that he brings to the table next week. And so that project is moving right along. Next couple of items I want to highlight, and you'll notice in your packet under the digital media tracking, this is a lot of data and information to digest, and I want to give you just kind of an idea of what you're looking at and some of the lessons or stories that I pull out of the data as I'm sitting down each day looking at our web data, and also how it guides us and how it guides our communications efforts. So what you're looking at across the 3 months are data from our direct mail pieces, our website, which is in the tan, in the red is our YouTube and video properties, and then in the purple is where you're going to see our social media properties. And each month we tried to pull the data from each of those areas. Not surprising, a lot of our numbers stay pretty consistent. If we were in, say, an e-commerce or kind of a private area, we'd want to see those numbers grow. But here with the city, we have some pretty strong numbers to begin with, and so benchmarking against those, it's really kind of interesting to look at, things like our email program. So in our email program, we have about 7,200 folks, or 7,200 emails that we sent out in the month of December alone. An incredible number to look at is, of those emails, about 48% or 48.9% of those emails were opened. To give you an idea of how impressive that is, when I work with third-party vendors asking what their open rates are on emails, or if another email marketing firm, typically they're telling me numbers in the single digits. Anywhere between 1% and 3% of an open rate is actually pretty good, a good day for them. That next number down, the outbound email clicks, that's the number of times our emails get clicked on. So to kind of give you an idea or a breakdown, out of that 7,200, those emails that were sent, roughly about half of them were opened, and about half of that half was actually engaged with. Someone actually clicked on the link, or they clicked on the story, they clicked through to open up the agenda. That is, again, it's kind of hard to say or say without showing you directly, but industry standard when it comes to clicks on emails is less than 1%. They Their strategy is they cast such a wide net, sending thousands upon thousands of emails, that even if they get less than 1% to click, they consider it a success. And so the fact that we can turn around and show that of our emails, of the emails that are being opened, half are being opened on average, that is a really strong indication that the folks who sign up for our email program are engaged, they're interested in the information, and the onus is really on us to ensure that we're providing that information consistently. So jumping down to our website, we see we're pretty consistent with about 15 to 16,000 visitors across the board of each month. The one number I do want to point out is our bounce rate. What that indicates is someone who has come to our website, views a single page, and then immediately leaves. For most websites, the best practice is you try to get that down to 30% or lower of a bounce rate. And you'll notice we're hitting at about 55, 61, 63%. And what's happening here is we have designed our website, and we've designed a lot of our bill pay property, our signing up for a recreation program, or paying for a ticket. Those are all third-party vendors. And so we encourage people to come to raymore.com, and we've made it very easy for them to then find, well, I need to click here to pay a bill, and immediately head to another website, which is hosted by another web host. So the numbers are a little inflated, they're a little kind of misleading, but that's kind of what's going on there. Then you'll notice the next couple of lines, the top 5 traffic refers and the top 5 keywords. These are really important for 2 reasons. The top 5 traffic referral sites, these tell us in the communications department how people or where people are coming from when they land on our website. And what we really took some extra steps to do is break out how many times, not just Facebook, but the Facebook mobile app was sending people to our website. And you'll notice across the board, the Facebook mobile app is the number 3 most referred site. This is important to us because that means we need to be designing our website to be mobile friendly. We need to be designing our ads to be mobile friendly, something that they can pull up on their phone very easily, find what they need, and can get to it within 1 or 2 clicks. That sounds very easy, but it can become very challenging, especially for a website that has as much information as we do about a host of, or a variety of different projects and things that are going on. On the top 5 keywords, these are the keywords that people are using to find our website. Not a terrible surprise that October, November, and December were dominated by trash and trash service. 155th Street was also a top 5 keyword earner, and the story that this gave us was we needed to be putting out more information, or ensuring the information that we put out about the 155th Street project was current, that it was correct, and that we were hitting kind of all of the questions that folks may have as they come to our website. And so you'll see the 155th Street project in a lot of different areas, not just on a current projects page, but we're providing news updates, we're providing Facebook updates, and a host of other areas. I want to jump down, unless anyone has any other questions about that, I wanted to jump down just very quickly to our Facebook pages. These continue to be, and you saw kind of in the top 5 referrals, Facebook and the Facebook mobile continue to be our top referring sites, and that is due in no small part to the very active Facebook community that we have. Through the City of Raymore page or the Police Department page, both have very active members, folks who use that Facebook page as their primary source of information about the city, who engage us in conversation and have questions when it comes to customer service. This has become a prime area, and especially through questions about the trash service, questions about 155th Street, questions about the GeoBond projects. A good number of our residents use the Facebook page first before they even pick up a phone to call. And so we continue to make these a priority and ensure that we have a presence there and that we're providing good information. So the one sheet that kind of looks different from all the others, after that, the spreadsheets, it's kind of this line graph, and I threw this in at the last second. And what I wanted to ensure, or what I wanted to kind of spotlight, is this line graph shows, and what's really important is that page views column it shows the amount of traffic that just our news section on the website gets. And so anytime we present a press release or we put out a news story in that area, we're continuing to see in the last 3 months just under 5,500 page views of those news stories. And so putting out news stories on our website continues to be an important source of information, especially since it's folks that are coming to our website, using that area and finding out information. So with all the talk of digital media, I don't want anyone to think that we're ignoring some of our traditional media outlets. And so the next few spreadsheets show the number of places that we've seen stories about Raymore City Hall in the North Cass Herald, the Raymore Journal, as well as the Missouri, or the Democrat Missourian. Some of the other regional media pieces as well will land on this. And to kind of give you an idea of what you're looking at here is the date of publication, the journal or the newspaper that it appeared in, the headline of that article, and then if it has an asterisk by the headline, that indicates it was a front page story. And then that final column in there, that placed media, that shows or indicates that is a story that was generated by a press release written either by myself or Ms. McGee. And so you can see sending out press releases and working with our local media continues to be an important area that we like to focus on, because the stories we put out, the news that we produce, is picked up by those news outlets. The last section that we have in here are some of the print samples. These are just to give you an idea, if you haven't seen them yet, of some of the pieces that our office is creating that we've designed and either mailed or sent out to our residents. If you would like to see any additional materials, or if there is something in particular that you would like to see, don't hesitate to give myself or Ms. McGee a call, and we'd be more than happy to provide those. And then just behind that are some of our social media examples, and attached to those are some of the data that comes with each of those individual posts. And so it's always nice to see that that a lot of the information, again, that the positive stories, the spotlight we're able to put on the animal shelter continues to receive a lot of likes, a lot of shares, comments, and we can see we can really shape the conversation about what's going on around the city based on the information and the schedule that we've put together in the communications office. And so with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I know it is a lot of information. My hope is, and what I don't want anyone, or what I would like everyone to kind of come away with, is this is a real broad report on a lot of the projects and initiatives we've undertaken in the last 3 months. If there's anything in particular or specific that you would like us to start tracking, or that you would like us to highlight in a little more depth and detail, would certainly be more happy to do that, either through the monthly report I do for the council, or through this report that we can do at a work session and discuss even more.
Anybody have anything? Mr. Townsend?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Deakin. Excellent brief. I had a quick question on the traditional media. I see it's rather local papers, newspapers and such. Do we ever, do you compile this, and do we search beyond these to see if Raymore has any activity on any larger regional area?
We do. So this is compiled just through the subscriptions that we have to the newspapers. Every week we sit down, we go through every newspaper and compile this list. What you'll see in the next quarter, and what we are, this quarter we didn't have a terrible amount of regional news. But what you'll see after the first of the year is you'll start seeing some of the TV news stations we're covering our trash service transition. And so you'll see some of those stories pop up, and we provide links to those, as well as capture where it came from, what station it came from. The other one that I think, the only one that didn't get placed in this one, was when Channel 41 came out and did an interview about the speed limit change on 58 Highway. And so, not a perfect tool, and I think we're getting a little bit better about trying to capture all of those. The Google search has been a great asset, because anytime Raymore is mentioned, we get an email digest of all of the stories. Sometimes those don't always focus on City Hall news, and so it's just kind of another source that we can go through.
Anyone? Mr. Holman?
Thank you, sir. Just a comment. Mr. Icky concur with Councilmember Townsend. comment that it's excellent brief, very thorough. I think you and your department have done an excellent job and really brought the city into a new level it's not been in previously. One of the things I have to get used to is, I'm sure everyone at this table has heard, and I'm sure Mr. Kellogg has heard a number of times, well, why did they do that and why didn't they tell us they were doing that? The thing I have to get used to now is responding with, how do you prefer to get your information? As opposed to, you know, I'm not going to come up, grab you by the chin and go, look at me, yes, we're fixing the bridge on 155th Street. We have to actually pin those people down and say, do you prefer to get your news via a robocall, a postcard, Facebook, an email? Because all of those options are available. And actually, I mean, some of those things we would say, hey, you need to contact Mr. Eek or his department. You can get put on a sign-up list for those things, and that will come to you. So if you prefer information, I'm old school enough that if somebody wants to know, I'm expecting that. Well, you expect me to come knock on your door or call your house, and we've gotten so far beyond that that I have to train myself to, this is how I need to respond to people, because they're in the same boat that I am. They're not understanding that we now track that kind of thing, how you like to receive your information, not only that, but what information you want to receive items about. You know, they may be interested in 155th Street, but not about stuff from Parks and Rec or vice versa. So thank you very much. It's very informative.
Absolutely. It was interesting when the first week of trash service, when we would receive phone calls from residents who said, we had heard nothing about this. We had no idea this was coming. And some of those phone calls I insisted I wanted to take personally, and it was always fascinating when I would hear, I never heard about this. I would go through the list of, here is where we had this information placed. Let me ask you, how can I better serve you? How can I better communicate with you to ensure you get this information? And the conversation would turn immediately. They were no longer angry. They were no longer, I mean, they had frustrations, but it then became, I appreciate that someone's willing to listen. And so much of what we do in the communications department is not necessarily pushing a message out, but just being able to listen and actually hear what our residents are saying and how they want to digest information, that we do a better job then.
Ms. Abdel, go on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just watching a webinar today where they talked about how if you don't create your story, then someone else will create it for you. And so I love that you said that, and that we're, you know, in front of those stories, creating the stories for people, because the story they create isn't going to be nearly as great as the one we tell them. So that we share with them. So I think that's fabulous. I am curious though, so those people that we weren't reaching through our avenues we already have, what was it that they said they were hoping for?
It was interesting because a good number of the folks that I spoke to who had heard nothing, I would ask them, well, do you receive the magazine? Well, yes, I received the magazine. Well, do you read the magazine? No, I don't. How could we get you to read the physical pieces that we send out? We put a lot of resources and time into putting that magazine together, and it's important, not just for the city message, but also for Parks and Recreation. And I never really got a consistent answer. And so that is always going to be something that we're looking at, that we're trying to revamp and ensure that residents are engaging with it. On the other side of that coin, I would encourage people to sign up for the email. You know, sign up for this weekly email, and it has all the information. We have about a dozen different email lists, from council agendas to the weekly report, updates from Parks and Recreation, RFPs that go out so people can keep up, or residents can keep up on projects. And in the first week, from January 1st to January 7th, we had about 65 new signups to that email alone. And so as we continue to encourage people to meet us at our venues that we already have open, I think they begin to realize that we've had these tools there. They just need to kind of take a second to sign up, to engage, and then they become plugged into what we have going on.
Follow-up?
Can I just add one more thing? Sure. I noticed that the average viewing time on YouTube is 9 minutes. I think that means we need to shorten our meetings.
I'm with you. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next department head.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. You do a great job, buddy. You know, I would actually compare that to, you know, we've had cameras in our patrol cars now for nearly 15 years, and I still get, or when I was still chief, I would still get people who complain about the treatment of the officer, but when I showed them the video, they changed their tune. It's kind of different. It's kind of the same. Anyway, go ahead, Matt.
Well, first and foremost, I wanted to thank the mayor and members of the city council for the opportunity to provide a quarterly report and presentation, as I really cherish this opportunity to come before you, as I know that sometimes you can believe that economic development is handled through the back hallways of City Hall and the secret corridors, but as a matter of fact, we're out there in full force and the front face of Raymore. So I'm really excited to share what I can with this fine group. So again,
well, it's 9 o'clock. Thank you very much for your report.
And with that, listening to the direction, I feel a bit like the closer of the evening. So hopefully I'm a 1, 2, 3 Wade Davis and not a Mike McDougal 2000 type of closer. But without further ado, I gave a copy of the report to each member, so you should have that. And you'll notice that I organized it in the 4 main facets or columns of economic development. Number 1 is business attraction, and that's what gets all the headlines. That's what brings everything all together. The second is BRE, or business retention and expansion. You'll notice that business attraction takes up 5 of the 7 pages of the report. So we listened to the citizens and the city council through Reimagine Raymore, as well as strategic plan, and business attraction is our number 1 effort. Followed closely behind is BRE, or business retention and expansion, and that boils down to building relationships with the existing businesses or those that have already called Raymore home, so that they don't get poached, so that they don't go out to other surrounding communities. Third on the list is workforce development, and the key there and why workforce development is so important is that the Amazons and the large companies of the world, when they look to locate in a particular community, number 1, if not number 2 on their list is workforce. How do I get 100, 300, 500 people in a timely fashion and keep that supply going? So it's extremely critical and interplays with the other facets of economic development. And fourth is kind of the special teams or wild card. In this report, it's basically general projects, department administration, but that certainly can fall within incubator space, entrepreneurialism, and business support services. So without further ado, I know that we're coming close to the 9 o'clock hour, and I know from personal experience, my productivity falls at the 9 o'clock hour. So I'll go ahead and go into it. And I wanted to echo Mr. Ickey's comments of, I'm going to try and summarize 3 months of work, actually more than that in actuality, into 15 minutes, if not less. So by all means, stop me if you have particular questions, and always, always reach out to Mr. Feuerborn, Mr. Cadret, and or myself with questions. I love to educate and communicate and collaborate on economic development, because it can mean so many different things to so many different people, and I love to talk about economic development. So, as you'll notice, retail commercial is the first thing on the report, and the first site, and I'm going to try and go through these in rapid succession as much as I can. The first site is the site for retail commercial in Raymore, and that's what we call the general gateway property or project area. Within there, we have about 8 parcels, and the city council might recall that we had a city-initiated TIF as part of the area, but this is just a map to show. I'm not going to go into the detail of all of the 8 parcels and the 4 different unique, distinct, or 5 unique, distinct property owners, but know that this is where we are attracting entertainment users, the grocery, specialty grocers, clothing and apparel, restaurants, as this is the stretch of 58 Highway that has 32,000 cars, which is highly attractive to retailers. There's 3 main components to this, or 3 main areas. We have the realigned Kentucky Road to be renamed going through the middle, to which we're doing final design stages on. As well as there's the west side, the east side, and the pad sites. Raymore Galleria, original TIF and SID follow roughly parcel 8 and 9, with the old Ryan site at parcel 7 and then a hodgepodge of barns, single-family houses, a duplex, and other structures taking up the rest of the parcels. So again, this is where we're going after those large, big box, large entertainment users to locate in our friendly confines. Next on the list is the Willowwind Square. As most city council members are aware, on the northwest corner of 58 Highway and Fox Ridge Drive sits about 9.67 acres if you take into account all the property there, which has existing structures and certainly is in a state of disrepair. We're currently working with the property owners on how to properly redevelop that site, but we have talked to a number of developers and are highly interested in redeveloping this site. And I apologize for the pictorial quality of the map, as it seems to lost some quality when I pasted it into here. But know that there are 5 existing structures with a number of existing users that are very intriguing to developers to redevelop this site. Again, there's about 6 parcels. The first one is owned by the church across the street. The second was supposed to be a magic walk that never happened. They still own the real estate, which is part of the parking lot of Willowwind. And then parcels 3, 4, 5, and 6 are owned by a group of individuals. And like I said, we've been working with them on how to approach this, and we will reapproach them here very shortly to discuss the redevelopment of that site, as I've listened to the mayor and city council members express extreme interest in seeing this site redevelop, and it screams TIF, SID, a full redevelopment, as that is the main gateway or entryway to one of our prime single-family residential developments, with new townhomes going in just to the north of it. So it is highly attractive, and we'll continue that pursuit on Willowwind. Going on down 58 Highway, the next site is Foxwood Plaza and Fox Ridge Commercial, as I like to phrase it. And right now we have interest from a developer looking at locating 2 prospective users on about 4.4-ish acres. So they're pretty large buildings, pretty large sites that would play a significant impact into our sales tax generation in our community. So again, like I said, it's a portion of Lot 1 and a portion of the property to the east. And they're currently working with the existing property owners and how this could potentially work, along with staff on access and other factors, but hopefully we'll have more to present to you all at the close of the first quarter of 2018 to share with you. But again, part of Lot 1 is covered by an existing TIF and part of an existing SID, so we have to kind of work out the details of that as well. But the 4.4 acres is, give or take, the north portion of Lot 1 and a portion of the Fox Ridge commercial property. The next site is the Good Ranch. So we're heading down I-49, heading to North Cass Parkway, and part of the Good Ranch is mixed-use track 1. And I've presented the map of the entire Good Ranch, or for the majority of it, off of North Cass, just to kind of give you all an idea of the regional picture. What I'm talking about right now is the mixed-use track 1, or the 140 plus or minus acres on the north side of North Cass Parkway as you exit off of I-49. So that is, again, this area here. A developer currently has a contract down on 70 to 80 acres on the very south end, and we're working on a couple of key attraction efforts there. I will preach this time and time again, but retail follows rooftops, not the other way around, with a few caveats, and those caveats are what we're working on down here. I, as much as anyone else, would love to see something happen on North Cass Parkway, but most retail requires certain minimum population thresholds within 3-5 miles that this site simply does not have. On 3 sides of it, you're basically got empty ground, which is not attractive at all to especially big box retailers. But know that we're working on those catalysts, those keys to bring them in there, that then the rest of the rooftops and the rest of the retail commercial will follow. So there are a couple of caveats, but I want to present the entire Good Ranch, and we'll talk about the industrial site here in a very short while. But to the north is the track 1. To the south of North Cass is a strip of North Cass Plaza, and we're working on attracting hotels and other retail users as well there. On to the professional medical office use. We heard from the citizens during Reimagine Raymore as well as City Council. We don't want to be just a bedroom community, but also offer additional employment opportunities, to which professional medical office certainly fits in with that. We're currently working with a major regional commercial developer that does retail. They do a whole slew of different commercial developments. For this particular project, it is for a professional medical multi-tenant use office site. And they are very interested in the Raymore Gateway site back to that area. On the north end of the west side is a potential site for professional office, and we're currently working with them on identifying potential prospective tenants in there. And hopefully in 2018, things will come together, and we'll be able to announce some more on that.
Matt?
Yes, sir.
Any question?
Backing up one, we were talking about North Cass Parkway, and you made the comment that a developer has a contract out on 75, 80 acres, something like that. I understand contracts can go south. Give us, what does that mean? as best as you can tell us.
So a developer has a contract down on the real estate. That's the first domino to fall or first step in any commercial development. So that shows that the developers expressed significant interest in that site, and they have a contract down and are currently in the process of the pursuit for end users or retailers to come into that location.
So above strong interest, probably. They're making a concrete
interest.
step towards actually developing the
It's
property.
not just a developer that kind of likes the market area. No, they have a real estate contract down to where they are going after, like I said, those prospective tenants and end users.
Very good. Thank you.
So on the professional medical office beyond the Gateway site, there's also the Heritage Professional Park site, which is about 1.24 plus or minus acres at 58 Highway as you go into the S-curve where North Madison and the post office is across the street. As the City Council knows, there's a couple of buildings that are sitting vacant there, and we have been approached by a business owner within the area looking to relocate their business as well as to redevelop the site into one, if not two, multi-tenant professional medical office buildings, not retail, to fill that spot. It's pretty exciting project, and I hope to announce something more in the first quarter of 2018 as they are exploring the potential acquisition of the site. And they're currently working with the existing property owner. And onto the mixed-use front, and let's talk about the city-owned municipal circle lots. As you all know, the location is 58 Highway and Johnston Parkway and Skyline Drive. Our property is around 2.19 acres, according to deeds, with a couple of expansion lots, one to the north, one to the south of the city lots. The conceptual site plan I'm about to show you takes in 2.87 acres, which is the city's property, plus the northern expansion lot 3. It's a proposed mixed-use project in alignment with the overlay district that Mr. Carteret and his department adhere to. So there's ground floor commercial along with luxury level residential on top. I've already met with a commercial developer that everyone would know very well as a multifamily developer that most folks would know very well. And they've expressed interest, and we are rekindling those conversations based upon the information I'm about to show you in the next slide. So I've been lucky enough and privileged enough to be able to work with a highly skilled planner within the city of Raymore, Mr. David Gress, and he is fantastic. He takes my thought bubbles over here, and I talk to you all about, and puts it on paper, and it's pretty amazing to watch and to see. This is about, and he's probably laughing if he's watching right now, this is like the 7th iteration of my harebrained ideas. But in talking with these developers and talking about the market, and again, I apologize for the picture quality, as that we've lost some integrity there, but on the left is the commercial floor, which is the ground floor, in conformance with the overlay district. And the site plan is meant to show you what can happen or could potentially happen. It's not meant to be what is actually to happen, but on the ground floor, you'll notice that we have a proposed coffee shop in the prime corner, the high visible spot of the ground to 58 Highway, which is what they would need. Next to that is some open commercial space of 6,000 square feet, to which we're currently working with a community partner on the potential location or expansion there. And then the commercial developer that we've been talking to has a lot of strong connections with the higher ed institutional world. And so our intent is to go out to the major higher ed providers of the area. You can think of Park University, my alma mater, the great Northwest Missouri State University, go Bearcats. And just to gauge and see their interest in, I believe it's 12,000 square feet, which is about right. But what I wanted David and I to kind of work on was, okay, what's the size of building that could go on there with our parking regulations in mind? And we did that, and this is the biggest envelope that could go on that spot. And so then to the right, which the text you can't really see, but each floor has around 24 units. Most multifamily developers that I talk to that do luxury level, they have a minimum of 48, if not 50 units, if not more. So we're probably looking at a minimum 2 floors above the ground floor for a total of 3 floors. The parking regs are being followed both from the higher ed and the coffee user and the commercial, as well as the residents. With the on-street parking, with the mayor's idea of making Municipal Circle one-way, we've got some additional on-street parking to take advantage of. I think it's a great site. I just wish that the pictures could really showcase it well, because it does really pop out at you with the prints. And I really look forward to re-engaging those developers to show them this thought or idea and to just to gauge their interest and see how they like to progress moving forward. Next on the mixed-use front is the Kirby site. And for those that aren't aware of where that location is, that is a property just to the east of Constantino's Price Chop, Rominski's Pizza, et cetera, in the Raymore Market Center, just to the east of Sunset Lane. And been working with the broker and the property owners on the development master plan there. It's about 14.17 plus or minus acres. Convinced them to set aside the corner piece, as that's what we call a hard corner AM side of traffic flow. So that's where, if you think about all the activities you do in the morning, gas, donut, coffee, that's the side of 58 Highway they would like to be on, prefer to be on. So they're setting aside that corner, and then to the north of the access point would be some type of multi-tenant commercial professional office buildings. And we also have another use around the L shape around that. So hopefully a lot more to come in 2018. It's a pretty exciting project that Mr. Catterett, myself, and the broker and the property owners have been working on. I'm trying to go through pretty quick. I've already kind of expired my 15 minutes, so my apologies. As you know, business attraction is a big component to this, and I'm trying to go through all the sites as best I can. The next front we're going to go after is light industrial, and this is a really key component to advancing the economic base of any local community, as that draws the employment along with the spin-off economic activity. And probably the greatest prime site that we have is, again, the Good Ranch and what I call the North Cass Business Park. And for my first 2 years on the job, it's all about getting the name of Raymore out there, so brand awareness, if you will. Talked to a number of developers, and a lot of them have said, oh, Raymore, is that Raytown, Raymore, where's that? Is that off of 71? It's actually an interstate. So we've gone beyond that point. Now we're talking to the 5, 6 top industrial developers. I have to be honest, probably 3 of them have said thanks but no thanks, we're just not interested in that market area right now. But 3 of the prime light industrial developers are interested, most of which you would know, and it's pretty exciting to have them interested in our community. But the principal site there is the North Cass Business Park that I like to key phrase it, which is south of North Cass Parkway as you go off 549, beyond North Cass Plaza, which is the strip of retail commercial that hugs North Cass. So once you push Dean Avenue on through, this is the south portion, up along I-49, great visibility with quick access to a full diamond interchange, as you can see from my marketing materials. So we've already estimated the infrastructure improvements of a little over $1 million, and then the electrical improvements that would be needed for industrial, about $360,000. The electrical can be taken care of through a couple of programs that KCP&L has. So we proposed that we work with the developer on completing the infrastructure improvements and getting the site ready to the site, and then they would take it vertical from there, do the grading work and go vertical. And we've come across a lot of great success with that proposal. There's 2 scenarios. The left side one is scenario A with 7 buildings, and in speaking with these top producing industrial developers. They say that most industrial users do not like to see forklift runs of more than 210 to 260 feet. So as such, you'll see on the left-hand side, it is one run, or 268 feet north to south depth to adhere to that principle without going into too much detail. And then the one on the right is actually too deep, so you can further subdivide the building both from an east-west perspective and a north-south, in direct alignment with something very similar to Three Trails Industrial Park, which is 5435 and 87th Street, which is going gangbuster. They completely filled up. And so kind of in line with that, that type of industrial development. And then on the other site of industrial for Raymore as it stands right now is what I call the east side industrial, for lack of better terminology. It is on the east side of Raymore, and there are 4 areas. Area 1 and 2 are currently zoned industrial, while 3 and 4 are currently zoned ag, but have business designation in the growth management plan. So this would be kind of the next frontier, if you will, of industrial development as this corridor further expands and develops out to 291 into Southern Lee Summit. We have certainly had talks with some developers. This is just too far off the I-49 or the beaten path for these large developers. So I envision something, at least in area 1 and 2, is something more around like Lee Summit Airport, where it's 50 to 75,000 square feet. It's a little bit smaller buildings, smaller footprints, a little bit smaller users, but still very important to a local economy. In area number 1, we definitely have some interest and some activity happening. And again, I hope to announce more, hopefully in the first, if not second quarter of 2018. But we are definitely in the process of announcing some things there. Yes.
Area number 1, the building below that, Russell Carty building.
Mm-hmm. I have heard that they've closed, but that the building was quickly bought. So I'm not sure if Mr. Cataract has any information. I've not heard it as to any new tenant or what their plans are. But I do know, I've heard that the building was transferred ownership, was bought. So it shows you the demand for industrial buildings. And moving on, as I know time is precious here, the additional columns, if you will, of economic development. We've got business retention expansion. Met with one local restaurant doing very well. They are tight in space and are looking to expand in 1 to 2 years. So I'm sure we'll be working with them on perhaps a redevelopment Willow Wind or elsewhere to relocate and kind of expand and really grow their business. And you'll notice at the end of the report, I've provided a year-end summary report of all of my business retention expansion survey questionnaires, interviews, sit-down meetings with the business owners, and you can gain a lot of great insight as to how the business community feels about Raymore. And then on the workforce development front, there's 2 main pieces that happened in the fourth quarter of 2017. One, I met with the World Trade Center of Kansas City. Yes, there is a World Trade Center in Kansas City. And their specialty is exporting goods and services to foreign countries. And they have a lot of great programs to which I'm sure we'll capitalize on once we further develop our entrepreneurial world of Raymore, and pretty excited to hopefully partner with them in the future. But even bigger on the workforce development front is the ACT, yes, that ACT, where you took the exam in college, Certified Work Ready Community, CWRC status. And the mayor is aware of this effort as he sits on the steering committee along with myself and other members of the different communities of Cass County. It is at the county level, and there's 2 main focus areas, one of which is the assessment takers, which are the folks that take the Work Keys assessment to gauge your skills and abilities. And that's broken up into 3 different areas: current, transitioning, emerging. Current deals with high school students mainly, folks coming into the workforce. Transitioning references folks transitioning from one job to the next. And actually, I'm sorry, emerging is the high school. Current is someone who has a current job and looking for a new job. On the other front, or the main focus area, is the employer side, to which I am spearheading the effort on the employer side from the county-wide. And real quick, I want to show you a screenshot of the Certified Work Ready status, we are at 45%, so we got a lot of work to do. And my counterparts in other communities that may be watching or listening, we do have a lot of work to do. We've got to hit the boots on the ground. We've really got to hit a lot of employers to sign up for it. It's really simple. You're just acknowledging your support of the effort. It doesn't mean you have to follow the work keys assessment or have your hiring procedures follow that. It's an exciting beginning parts of regional workforce development, because workforce development truly is a regional effort. As I mentioned, Amazon, they're the large companies. They don't look at city limits when they're trying to find talent. They can't. They often look well beyond those boundaries, 25, 30, 40 minutes beyond their location. So developing that workforce is truly a regional effort, and we have a lot of great community stakeholders around that table. So this is a good start to which we're starting a workforce summit effort throughout the county. So pretty exciting things to happen in workforce development, and to partner with the Raymore Peculiar School District as well on that. So I know time is precious, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. I'm happy to answer any questions tonight. And again, if you have any questions, do not hesitate in reaching out to Mr. Fearborn and Mr. Cadrat, myself, via phone, email. And real quick, I did want to reference our efforts, my efforts with the fine communication staff of the City of Raymore. And we put together 2 attraction flyers. So I should have brought together the packet that I normally give to developers or whoever I'm dealing with or meeting with. But on the screen right now is our 2 flyers that Melissa and I worked on. The retail side on the left, the industrial side on the right. The retail, our custom retail trade area, as you might recall from Retail Strategies presentation, goes far outside city limits, to which we grab about 150, 170,000 people, and that definitely gains the attention of big box retailers and entertainment users, as well as our incredible growth rate. Whenever a community has a growth rate of 2 to 3%, you should jump up and down. We have a 6 to 7% annual population growth rate within Raymore, which is astounding. And actually, doing the analysis, we are #1 in the KC metro area for residential building permits per capita. So a lot of folks like Overland Park, Lenexa talk about how they're #1, #3 in just sheer number of building permits, which is true. But there are also communities of 60, 80, 100,000 people. We're still 20, 25,000. Per capita, we are #1 in the KC metro area, so we're doing fantastic. In industrial, it's all about talking about the region as a whole. And I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but we're actually the #2 in the U.S., entire nation, in industrial construction completions for buildings going vertical for industrial. We're #3 truck center in the U.S., so that shows you that the Amazon and the Dollar Tree distribution, all those folks, that's why they're located in Kansas City, is we're right in the middle. We reach 85% of the U.S. within 2-day, if not 1-day truck times, which is pretty amazing. And we've talked about Chapter 100 industrial development bonds, but that's significant savings from a developer perspective and development perspective. And of course, the North Cass Business Park, we already talked about that site. So it just kind of shows you the framework of how I present Raymore to developers and other retail end users. So yeah, with that, I think that we won't go any more detail, Mr. Mayor, and I'll close my report.
No, that's great, Matt. You know, when I first started, a couple of years ago, I could get into his office just about any time and talk to him. Now I got to make an appointment, so it's, I know he's staying awfully busy.
Thank you, sir. As a matter of fact, next week, we'll be heading up I-29 to Omaha for the International Council of Shopping Centers, ICSC, which is de facto commercial real estate professional organization, to present Raymore to developers. And
yeah, you know, I actually got an email today I haven't shared with you yet that says they want to see us when we get there.
Yes,
so
sir.
That's a good
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
All right. Anybody have anything for Matt? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Just one question, and this is more of a food for thought on my part, but if you or we as a city were to have unlimited resources, what one thing would you recommend we do to accelerate commercial growth within the city?
Remove barriers, obstacles from going vertical. So when I talk about the Raymore Gateway site, there's a number of hurdles, obstacles at that site that either can or cannot be seen by driving by. So to be able to have the resources to take care of that would be astounding.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last item on our agenda. Thank you, Matt. Do we have any other reports?
No, sir, that's it.
That concludes it. Does anybody have anything else under other that they'd like to bring up? If not, we're done. Thank you, everybody.